Think that they have enough in that receiver room in Denver to help make it work with whoever wins the starting gig?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do. I spoke with Cortland the other day. He's out in Florida right now, training locked and loaded. He's one of the top receivers in the game. I mean, if you just give him an opportunity, I mean, he's gonna make plays for you. Tim Patrick, I played with Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick is a guy that's gonna go full speed. He's gonna give you everything he's got every single play. They got the young guy Troy Franklin coming in, and then Mims. I actually enjoyed watching Mims last year. I mean, with the touches that he made the most of them, even in the special teams play. He was special on kickoff return and that sort. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, it's going to come down to the quarterback play and, Sean Payton making sure they're on the right page. But I think in the receiver room, I think they're going to be just fine.
Knowing Coach Payton as well as you know him, so we're hearing Zach Wilson, who he brought in, obviously a talented guy. He could get the best out of him. We hear he's been impressing. They draft Bo Nix, which means that Coach Payton had to really like him. Knowing Coach as well as you do, what is he looking for? Like, what is it that he's looking for when making the decision on the week one starter?
He's looking for the next like Drew Brees. And when I was out there in 2020, that was a COVID year, and I just remember, I ended up missing 2 games that COVID year because I ended up catching it, and we had guys in and out. Mike Thomas was hurt that year. He was literally playing with some rookies at one point, and I mean him and Sean Payton, the way that they kind of connected and they were one on the field in terms of Drew knew exactly what Payton wanted, and Payton knew that Drew was going to put us in the right situation, and then we still won games. And that's Payton's offense. He likes to stay ahead of the defensive coordinator. He wants a quarterback that you can throw it down the field, but also make the right reads, check the ball down when need to be, and just give me positive yards and keep me ahead of the sticks. And everything that I'm hearing about Bo Nix is that's what he does. Now, I don't know much about Zach Wilson. Truthfully, I don't know if we've seen the real Zach Wilson because, with the Jets, he really didn't have, in my opinion, the right coach in terms of offensive coordinator. That's just my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see what Sean Payton can do with both of those guys. I mean, it's a project, but man, I said it and I mean it. For those 2 guys that have Sean Payton as an offensive coordinator, what a blessing.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this because I've talked extensively about Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos and how I think Bo Nix is going to be successful with the Broncos and have a lot of success. I really do. I think Sean Payton got exactly who he wanted. Now, it does feel like, and we have to wait for a little bit deeper into the offseason closer into like actually preseason camp and all that stuff, where we actually get a feeling of, is Bo Nix going to get the start? I'm always okay with sitting a quarterback and not throwing him in right away, no matter who they are. I'm just a huge fan of that. I think you let them grow into becoming a professional NFL athlete, which is not the easiest thing to do, especially when you're a quarterback. There's just a lot on your plate, and I think pretty much literally everyone could benefit from sitting in that first year. No matter how developed you are, honestly, you still benefit. And again, we see this in things of like resident doctors and surgeons, like they don't just get thrown into the fire right away. And just because you can survive or even succeed doesn't make you better than someone who then sits. No one can look at Patrick Mahomes' career and say, well, he had to sit his first year. Like, that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about it. And not to mention, I think Patrick Mahomes could have started in the NFL that first year, but he obviously improved by sitting that year. I just think that's indisputable. And it works when you actually have a great offensive head coach like Sean Payton. And so it is an interesting question about Zach Wilson. I think the fan base for the most part really wants to see Bo Nix play. From my experience making these videos and reading all the comments, it sounds like everyone's really excited. Broncos fans are really excited for Bo Nix, and they want him to start and play, and they want to hit the ground running. They want to see what they have, which I totally can appreciate and understand. But I guess I wanted to take a slightly different angle because I was pretty low on Zach Wilson. I've kind of ripped him apart a lot, specifically like with the Jets, obviously since he's been playing with the Jets, but like last season and how he just looked. I actually like felt bad for him. Like he actually genuinely looked uncomfortable and scared, right? Like you could see if you watch those Jets games, like he looked unnatural, uncomfortable, unsure of himself. And it almost like seemed dangerous, honestly, because football can be dangerous, obviously. And it looked like they threw out like a 12-year-old with a bunch of men. And it was like, well, good luck, and that's a problem. But to Sanders' point, it's true. You didn't really get to see who Zach Wilson was. Now, to be clear, I don't know if Zach Wilson will ever be an actual legitimate bona fide starter in the NFL. It's hard to forget all of what you saw over the however many years with the Jets. But I will say this. Any quarterback that has the requisite foundational components of a quarterback, right? You're not like 5'8" and you've just been kind of going a little bit above, or you don't have you have terrible accuracy, but you're just so lightning quick. Like these guys that have the foundational approach, they can stay in the pocket. They're not, excessively small or excessively gigantic. Like they're not these extremes. They can throw the ball. They can make reads. Like they're functional, right? Hence why they got drafted. They're not a disaster. And if they're humble enough to actually just do what they're told to do, right? They don't freestyle. They don't improvise. They don't try to be a hero. They just do what they're asked to do, right? When you have the right offensive coordinator, the right weapons around you, just like team in general around you, and the right voice, and you can have a lot of success. You absolutely positively can have a lot of success. It's why we see some of these backup quarterbacks, especially as of late, these backup quarterbacks who we know are just pretty much truly backup quarterbacks, are not ever going to be like legitimate starters. When they have a great offensive head coach or just a great OC, they win. They can have success. They can get the job done, and they can have early success, right? As long as they have these foundational components to them. And again, I don't know if Zach Wilson necessarily has that, because the Jets offense was such a mess that it's just like, maybe he does and you just can't tell. Right? We've seen players like that who are actually pretty good, but they're with a team that's just such a disaster that they look even worse than they actually really are indeed. And so I just think that even if Bo Nix ends up sitting and you have to throw in Zach Wilson there, I don't even think that would be the worst thing, as long as he shows. Because Zach Wilson does have a little bit of a, I don't want to say like attitude. Like he's not as humble as like a Bo Nix to me, or as a Brock Purdy or some of these other guys that seems like, he will just do what's asked of him. I don't know. At this point in his career, he might feel that he's like hanging on by a thread, and he might just do whatever Sean Payton will tell him to do. And the truth is like, I understand some of the lore of Sean Payton seems to have been broken a little bit, because he wasn't able to come in and just immediately win smashingly with Russell Wilson. And so now people kind of take that as like, we'll see, he's really not that good of a coach. He's just kind of rode the coattails of Drew Brees. And I just disagree with that. I think, of course, he's benefited from having Drew Brees, just like I think Andy Reid's the best coach in the NFL and in the history of the NFL, and he's benefited from having Patrick Mahomes. But we saw what he could do with other quarterbacks as well. And the truth is to truly win consistently in the NFL and be the most resilient team, be the most resilient you can be as a team, you need like essentially a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, really, only Hall of Fame quarterbacks win Super Bowls, or like borderline Hall of Famers. And the outliers to that are either the team is so ultimately stacked, or the QB played out of his mind for a run. And the best example to me will always be Nick Foles, because they did not win a Super Bowl with non-Hall of Fame quarterback play for the Eagles. He played like a Hall of Famer. He had the best Super Bowl in the history of the NFL. Like, that's what it takes to win as a non-Hall of Fame quarterback, right? So you are always going to be a better coach. Whenever you're trying to evaluate how good a coach is, yes, you're always going to be better with a bona fide, legitimate, just all-time great quarterback. There's no disputing that, because some people want to look at Bill Belichick and just be like, see, he's a bum, he's nothing, he's a terrible coach. And it's like, Yes, he's absolutely benefited from having Tom Brady, but let's not act like Bill Belichick is now just a scrub, like he just has nothing to his name anymore, because that's just too extreme. And I'm seeing that a lot with Sean Payton. There's been a lot of recent Sean Payton hate, and I do think that this will be a telling year, really, like the next couple of years. Like, can he develop Bo Nix? Does he make Zach Wilson actually significantly better? Where now the Jets fans are like, what the heck? Where was that Zach Wilson? I think if you do that, then that's like just further proof of like Sean Payton is a legitimate, bona fide, offensive minded head coach that you can trust, that if the quarterback doesn't play well with him, it's not on Sean Payton. It's most likely it's going to be on the quarterback. And so that's why I think both Bo Nix and Zach Wilson are in a really fascinating situation, because everyone doubts them, quite honestly. I mean, if you're not a Broncos fan, or maybe like a Oregon fan, like everyone seemingly is doubting Bo Nix, and definitely people think that Zach Wilson is just nothing, right? It was just kind of like, we'll get Zach Wilson because, hey, you need a backup quarterback somewhere. He can at least kind of play. May as well keep him, may as well have him, especially if you're not paying much for anything. So I just think it's interesting. A part of me wants to see both these guys play just for entertainment purposes, quite honestly, because it would be fascinating if Zach Wilson can like ball out or look really competent and just look like legit. And it depends. It depends on what the Broncos are expecting this season, because if they think that they can legitimately win and get into the playoffs, which we know Sean Payton is not prepared just to kind of kick back and relax, because he could have pulled Russell Wilson earlier and had an even worse record and had a better draft, had a higher draft pick. But instead, he wanted to win. He was willing to just limp into the playoffs. He was willing to get the lowest seed. That's why he was furious at Russell Wilson, because especially once the playoff hopes went away, he was genuinely angry. He is not like, okay, whatever, it's actually kind of good for us to only win 3 wins. He doesn't want that. But if his perspective changed slightly, and who knows if it has or it hasn't, you can make the argument of trotting out Zach Wilson, even if Bo Nix is, of course, your long-term plan, and it's not because you think that Bo Nix is not good enough and Zach Wilson just beat him out. Like, it's just you put out Zach Wilson to show everyone, hey, he's actually a pretty good quarterback. I got him going pretty well. And then when injuries ultimately come during the season, you may be able to trade him and just get something in return. And then that just helps you moving forward. So the Broncos are definitely in a fascinating situation with the quarterback position, but I could also see it very quickly just not being a contest at all. That it is just very much like Bo Nix has played, all these games in college. He's ready to go in the pros. We're not going to wait. We're not going to play any games. We're not going to try to trot out Zach Wilson to be like, look, he's pretty good. You guys want him? Like, give us picks, give us something, give us a wide receiver, whatever. And it's just going to be like, nope, we're just moving forward. We're putting all of the QB drama in the past, and we're just moving forward with Bo Nix. The new era begins now. So it'll be really interesting to see where this all goes and what choices they make. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys think about Zach Wilson and Bo Nix in terms of the success that they could have with Sean Payton? Do you think if it would be worthwhile to try to like actually legitimately get Zach Wilson out and about, because either because you think he's actually going to be a legitimately good quarterback, or because you show that he's competent and then you can trade him and get something in return if you're the Broncos? Or do you just want to hit the ground running with Bo Nix and just kind of go through the growing pains with him? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.